two big winners in the Ames, Iowa straw poll on Saturday were Michele Bachmann and the man who wasn't there, Rick Perry. And then there's Mitt Romney with plenty of cash and organization and name recognition, and Ron Paul with his unshakable Romulan fan base. So is the GOP field already narrowed down to just 4 candidates? I'm Steve Green. This is Trifecta, and here to answer that question and more are my partners in From the Hip, Off the Cuff political jawboning, Scott Ott and Bill Whittle. Okay, gents, let's start with you, Scott. Bachmann got nearly 30% of the vote in Ames, narrowly edging out Ron Paul. And here's a bit from her acceptance speech.
You have just sent a message that Barack Obama will be a one-term president.
Those are the prettiest words in the English language, I think. Now, Scott, I know you're a fan, but try and put that aside and tell me what you think of her performance in Ames.
Well, I have been very impressed with Michele Bachmann. I got to see an entire speech that she did once. And by the way, she uses that one-term president thing every time she speaks. I think that the Ames straw poll, more than anything, is a demonstration of your ability to get things organized on the ground. Can you put together a campaign that brings people together to do something? It's not a legitimate election. It is a self-selecting group, but it does take some effort and some ground organization and some savvy to build an organization that can make that happen. Michele Bachmann was very impressive in that regard, and I think it would be, at any other candidate's hazard if they took that for granted.
Yeah, and Obama won on his ground game in 2008. That's something to keep in mind as we watch these candidates. All right, Bill, on the same day as the Ames straw poll, Texas Governor Rick Perry flew to South Carolina to announce that he's in the race. Watch this clip.
It is time to get America working again, and that's why, with the support of my family and unwavering belief in the goodness of America, I declare to you today as a candidate for President of the United States.
Expect to see a lot more of that work theme. Bill, nobody's had a chance to cast even a straw poll vote for Kerry, but a lot of people saying he's already the man to beat. Do you think?
I do. I thought so before he got into the race. I thought he had, in an election that's going to be about jobs, basically in the economy, when half of the jobs are created in his state and the other half are created in the other 49, that guy's got some leverage. Perry said something, I didn't see it directly, but I read about it. Apparently, he in his acceptance speech or somewhere said, my goal is to go to Washington and work as hard as I can to make Washington as inconsequential as possible in your lives. And I just about fell off my chair and thought, my goodness gracious, how do you put a price on that? My goal is to make Washington as inconsequential in your lives as I can. Think about what that would mean to business, the economy, regulations. That's the message. With the attitude, with Barack Obama's trying to run against Congress, him versus Congress. Perry's basically trying to say, a pox on all of them. I want to reduce them to the size of a postage stamp.
Well, that might be a little too big for our taste. Scott, what about Ron Paul? He has a solid grip on the libertarian wing of the GOP, and he was only shy of Bachmann by about 150 votes in Ames. And now the AP says Paul is no longer, and this is their word, fringe. Is he a force to be reckoned with?
Well, I think the same thing I said about Bachmann applies to Ron Paul. He was able to demonstrate that he could put together an organization within that state. Now, Paul had a little bit of a leg up because he's been doing this for years. He's had this band of merry pranksters out there trying to advance his philosophy and, frankly, his cult of personality. And that's the thing that concerns me about Ron Paul. If he were legitimately somebody who really cared about the principles that he espouses, he would not allow it to go on like this where he thinks somehow he's going to get the party's nomination. It's not going to happen. He needs to find a candidate who is electable, who shares his principles. If he really cared about something other than being worshipped by the Romulans, he'd do that.
Excellent point. It's the first time I've heard it put that well. Bill, how about you? Will the Libertarians stick with Paul, or do you think enough of them will settle on either Bachmann or Perry to put up a united front against Romney? I guess what I want to know is this the time for that kind of pragmatism, or is it too early?
No, I have to disagree with Scotty here. I mean, the whole purpose of the primaries is to have a thrashing out of the opinion that's eventually going to go up against the Democrats in November of next year. And the time for people to drop out of the race is after they've been through several primaries and just basically realize the math isn't there. There is nothing but, I had a friend of a friend who's a big old liberal, knows I'm a conservative, and the first thing he said was, how do you feel about the dissension in the Republican Party? And I said, buddy, Let me tell you about the dissension in the Republican Party. People are really getting the ideas banged around, and we're looking at our candidates, but I am telling you there's not a Republican or a conservative in America who is not counting down to the first Tuesday in 2012. We will vote for a mop as a body. We will come out and bring everybody we can to vote for a hockey puck against this guy. So keep up all that talk about dissension in the Republican Party. When the dust settles, people are going to be behind whoever that candidate is in a way that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, you know, I saw that very thing in the last election in 2010 in a Republican district where the Republican almost always wins. People came out in force, and in an off year, too. All right, Scott, last question for you. You're what I call a principled small government social conservative, rather, not a big government Republican like George W. Bush or Mike Huckabee. So between Perry and Bachmann right now, I think you're really enjoying an embarrassment of riches, aren't you?
Well, yes, and I agree with Bill that we've got a lot of other people on the slate, too. That's one of the things you look at and you say, wow, we've got a lot of great choices here. And frankly, I'd be much happier with Ron Paul than the current occupant of the White House. Yeah, we've got some people who seem to legitimately understand that Washington, D.C. is the problem. It's not a place where you go to fashion a solution. It's a place where you go to whittle it down to the smallest possible size to keep it within the confines of the Constitution and to keep their noses out of our lives.
It's been a long time in the past, I'm afraid. It can come back. That's our own Scott Ott, host of the upcoming Freedom's Charter right here on PJTV. Stay tuned for that, and don't miss his trifecta segment this week on flash mobs. All right, Bill, here's the way I think the field stacks up right now. Ron Paul gets most of the Libertarians. Bachmann and Perry are duking it out for the social conservatives. And Mitt Romney, I guess he gets the squishes. Can Romney pull a divide and conquer like McCain did and end up as the last man standing?
Romney carries with him some of the same problems that Hillary Clinton does, and that is that he's so well known. He's such a known factor at this point that there's not a whole lot of movement really possible. Now, you have somebody new on the scene like Rick Perry, has the potential for great growth and also has the potential for great lapse, because not a whole lot of people have a firm opinion of him. But Romney's been around for so long, I don't see how he's possibly able to suddenly just surge and pick up 10, 15, 20% of the conservative vote that he didn't have before.
Good point. That's Bill Whittle, the creator of Afterburner and the co-founder of Declaration Entertainment. And look for his trifecta this week on the left's disillusionment, believe it or not, with President Obama. All right, folks, I know it's early in the race. It's far too early to pick any winners. For me, it's too early even to pick any favorites. But right now, here's what my gut tells me. Mitt Romney is flipping and flopping to the right, which is nice, but it still makes him a flip-flopper. Ron Paul's foreign policy is too capital L libertarian for a lot of small L libertarians who are in the Republican Party. And Michele Bachmann, much as I appreciate what she does, is a little too socially conservative for my own personal taste. So for a lot of people, that might leave just one good choice. And you know what? If imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, well, maybe President Obama will finally get the chance to run against a real Republican from Texas. For Bill Whittle, Scott Ott, and everyone here at PJTV, I'm Steve Green.